Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here, and a real pleasure to be able to say a few words about what's a really terrific report. And I was thinking, well, you know, what can I actually add to this discussion? And there's not a great deal that I would add in terms of disagreements with the report. I think that the report lays out extremely well some of the very positive things that have been happening. And in fact, I think one of the things I'd like to really commend the report for is this quite positive story, because in the development space right now, I think that there is a tendency to wonder, does global cooperation really work? And a lot of the post-2015 discussion actually centers around that quite important point. So I think the fact that we do seem to be making some progress in important elements of the development agenda is actually a very important finding, especially when it's something as emotional, as close to people's hearts as hunger, food security, and nutrition. So that positive story, I think, is very welcome. It shows up. We had a record year of production of grains, I think, in 2013. Prices being relatively stable, but then, of course, the appropriate notes of caution about the fragility of the situation and about how quickly things can change. The second thing which I think is so good about this report is that we really desperately need reports like this as part of a broader accountability framework for the development goals and targets. And we have that to some extent with the MDGs, but I think one of the things that the MDGs did not do all that well was the monitoring and accountability framing. And in particular, in that framing, it often just ends with the very narrow specifics of the goals and the targets. And of course, the goals and the targets are always, I think, thought of as being entry points into a much broader discussion of the way more complex issues that surround any particular area of development. And that's something that you don't find that easily if you just go to the MDG indicator page that's on the UN site. So having a report like this, I think, is really important for that. And then last, evidence. Evidence. It has become a little bit of a mantra today. But despite that, it is actually quite surprising how little attention is really given to the credibility of much of the data on which we think we are basing our policy. And so having something that looks quite hard at the real evidence, I think, is really useful. So I wanted to just give a few observations about how this report fits into the post-2015 process. That's something that I know a little bit about because I was part of the secretariat that was assisting the high-level panel on the post-2015 agenda. And the essence, I would say, of the post-2015 agenda is that it's largely about global cooperation for development. It's not an effort to say this is the whole story of development. There are many things that happen in a national context which belong in a national context but don't belong necessarily in a global conversation. Many things, particularly around politics, but around many other things. So it's important to really focus on those areas where global cooperation is necessary. And it turns out that agriculture, broadly, is one of the areas where global cooperation has perhaps been least successful. And I say that because of the following numbers. If you look at manufacturing, there is unconditional convergence between advanced countries and developing countries in manufacturing productivity, by which I mean that those countries where productivity levels are higher have had slower growth rates. There is unconditional convergence in services, although there are some issues with the data on labor productivity in services. There is no such relationship for agriculture. And it's very surprising. One would think that of all of the things, agriculture would be one area where it would be easiest to transfer technologies, to transfer the science, to raise smallholder yields. It turns out that that's one of the most difficult places to actually achieve that. So what can global cooperation do? I think one of the things we learned in the post-2015 exercise is that setting clear goals and targets do work. That's really useful. If there is one quibble that I would have with this report, it's the choice of the date 2025 as the target date for the goal and the target. I know it came before the high-level panel report was issued, but now that the UN seems to be converging on 2030 as a time frame for sustainable development goals, I think it's important that the whole development community stays with that kind of time frame. I would also just say that goals and targets are as much a communications and aspirational device as they are a technical device. And so we tried actually to include the concept of sustainable agricultural intensification in the high-level panel report. That lasted roughly 30 seconds after it actually got to the table. It isn't a concept which goes down very easily with politicians. It isn't something which is easily understood by people. And so there is still a focus on things that people can readily understand. Hunger and nutrition are obviously have that property as being very important hooks. But we can't just leave it there, and we have to also think about how we can get to issues and agenda issues which are more universal. And I think one of the things which is quite unique about the new sets of goals is the effort to make them universal. Universal meaning applicable not just to developing countries, but to all countries. And that's really why some of the other issues that come up in this area, like food waste, like the global commons, overfishing, those kinds of issues which are really the responsibility and where there are actions required of all countries do become important. So I would just hope that in this community, you also think hard about how we can get more of a universal agenda. I think somebody Asma, I think, was saying even in the United States, the numbers in hunger are something like 7%. That's far higher than the numbers in extreme poverty. There is a question in the post-2015 agenda, should we actually aggregate the hunger with the extreme poverty goal? I personally think that that would be a big mistake, but it's still very much of an active discussion. And it's a big mistake precisely because of these kinds of numbers. You don't have extreme poverty in advanced countries. You do have hunger in advanced countries. It's much easier to apply universality there. Last, let me just commend the notion of better data. We called for a data revolution in the high-level panel report. This is probably an area, hunger and nutrition, where we need I was going to say where we most need better data, but actually we need better data pretty much across the board. But really the quality of data is something which I think the global community would do very well to think very hard about. We know the issues about the measurements of hunger. We know there are issues about the measurements of nutrition and what's appropriate or not. What's quite striking to me is that increasingly we don't even have good metrics of how much ODA is going into agriculture and how to break that down. Very few metrics about what the emerging economies are doing here, and we know that they're now quite significant. So there's a great deal of reporting that is still to be done. Thank you very much.